They say marketing is a madman's game. So now we turn it over to the Marketing Madmen with Nick Constantino and Trip Joe.
Welcome to the Marketing Madmen podcast. Nick Constantino here, and we are doing a special episode about the Intersect Watch Show that happened this past weekend in Atlanta. The show was at Moto Escape Atlanta, which is actually a really cool used car shop and storage venue. It was awesome. For some context, it is one of the first watch shows that's actually come to Atlanta. One of the first that I've attended. Big time watch guy, wear all kinds, been fascinated with it. Everything from quartz watches back in the day to some big automatic watches and big brands. And I really just thoroughly enjoy the industry. But today we're going to talk specifically about micro brands. So one of the cool things about the Intersect Watch Show is it brings together all these micro brands. So micro brands are making about 1,000, 2,000 watches a year. That's why they're called micro brands. It's not the big names. It's not Admir Peugeot. It's not those big names you know of, the Rolexes of the world, the Omegas of the world. These are watch dudes, watch guys that decided, wow, I want to make a watch company. And it's amazing to see how many of them have succeeded. So we went through a couple different brands. I got to spend a good amount of time at the show. And I'm going to go into a little bit about the brands I saw and some of the things I observed. And then we got a couple interviews from the show, which will be great to just kind of capitalize, give everybody an idea of what's going on in that space, because it is fascinating. Let's go through some of the brands. So the first one we stopped by was Anordain. They're making very cool enamel dials. Just the layering and the way you can see the light shine. It was a very cool thing to see. And then Bespoke Watch Products. They have a selector. You can actually make your own watch. So all these different models, engravings, gold rotors, Swiss movements, everything. You can customize every part of it. And their system allows you to do it in real time and make a completely unique watch, which I think is a really cool take on it. And I think one of the things that stands out, every one of these guys has got to have something a little bit different. They got to have something that catches your attention because, again, it doesn't have the same brand pedigree as a Rolex does, where the demand is just through the roof. So each of them have these little kind of specialties and areas of expertise. And it was really cool to see each of these owners and the founders really talk about those specialties, because you see the passion that goes into it. Next one, Christopher Ward. So Christopher Ward has been around a long time in this space, for this space. I've owned a couple of them. I had a Trident. I had one of their manual wines. They make really neat watches, Swiss watches, but they had some really new flashy stuff. First of all, their Bel Canto is just an amazing piece of machinery. It's a chime watch, so every hour you'll hear a little ding, and it is a complication usually reserved for watches that cost 100, 200 grand, and they stuff that thing into a $4,000 watch, which is unbelievable. It's also futuristic but retro looking. It's got some really cool patterns on there. The way the dials are, it is quite a cool watch. I also saw a prototype. I can't show an image because I was sworn to secrecy of the new 12 watch. It's got an in-house movement and it's got a skeleton dial. My goodness, how they fit that movement in there and how they got that dial on it. A lot of work went into that, so very cool. We also stopped by Fears of England. Again, tons of pedigree and history. The way they make their dials, just the layering of the paint and the enamel and the way they make the hands. It is a fascinating thing to see. The white, it was like super white. They had a really cool meteor looking one. Really cool brand to check out. Probably at the higher end of the price point for these. Those are $2,000-$3,000 watches, but once you look into how much work goes into the dial making, it's unbelievable. I also stopped by MK2. I was told that this was the godfather of micro brands. He brought a brand back to life in Tournec-Revel, and if I botch these brands, I'm sorry. I've heard so many people pronounce all these things so way, but it was just, this is a utility military spec tool watch, and it's great to see that, because sometimes it's not bells and whistles, it's functionality. Someone like Sin comes to mind. That it's the function of this thing. They look great on your wrist, but you're not going to look at this for crazy complications and movements. You're looking at this thing because they can go through a war pretty much and back, and that's where some of the original pedigree came from. We had Formex. Formex is an interesting one. I've owned a Formex or two back in the day, and just to watch how they've come from their 4-speed series now to their Essence and their Reef series. Very cool watches. Again, Swiss made, but they feel like they're making up for their fans, which is another pretty broad scope of these guys. They're all trying to make watches based on fans. Rolex has been making the same watches for years. They're just subtle tweaks, and that's great for Rolex, but there are a lot of brands that their fans want to really engage with them, which is cool. So the last one, and we're going to have the last two will be two interviews that we had, was Saat Watch and Notice. So Saat was out of Baltimore. This was 3 days before what happened with the Francis Scott Key Bridge in Baltimore. So my heart is with Baltimore. I spent a lot of time up there when I went to the University of Maryland. But they're making movements in-house, and you'll see the actual back of it has that Maryland flag, which is even a point of pride even more now. So I'm really excited about that. And then Notice. Wes from Notice was nice enough to kind of get me in. I got to go to VIP for the show, got to do some interviews. Notice has been around for quite some time in this space in LA, and they are really making watches that their fans want to see. It is really cool to see how the thought process that went into these watches, why they're making them, and why their fans love them so much. I think it's also taking these guys back a lot, how quickly some of their limited edition and their collaborations sell out. I was talking about Christopher Ward, their Bel Canto, they're sold out for 7 months. They thought it was going to take 6 months to sell out. It sold out about 13 minutes. And then again, Notice, they have this really cool collaboration with Raven watches. It's just another one of those brands that were there. And it's just, the space is blooming, but they're still held back by what they can actually produce, which makes their supply and demand curve real, it's crazy to see. And, it was enlightening for me to see it. Some quick observations as I looked around. The passion is crazy. I mean, the people were flying in from all over the country to go meet a buddy to go see this watch show. That just shows you how much demand there is for these type of shows. And the shows have gotten harder to come by. You used to have so many, Baselworld in Switzerland, and so many shows that were bringing everyone together. The brands have gone away from that. They want to do their own shows. Swatch wants to do their own. Richmond wants to do their own. But to see these guys come together, and the one thing that really stood out, yes, they compete, but in this space, the rising tide lifts all ships, and all they want to do is raise awareness and sell into the micro brands and that strategy, because it's booming, and I hope it continues to. Really, just a ton of passion, a lot of people from diverse backgrounds. That was another really cool thing. I mean, everyone, it was the most diverse group, as opposed to what you assume when you think of Switzerland, and just a very homogenous group when you think of Switzerland. So super cool to see. I love the venue. Cars and watches just go together so nicely. So I loved it. Hopefully we can check it. They come back and we can do a little bit more in depth, get them up here to do a little bit more formal interview. But I appreciate what Wes and that team did for me. I had a great time at Intersect Watch, and check out some interviews from the show.
I run Notice Watches based out of Los Angeles. This show that we put together, it started back in 2019. And the idea was that it's an intersection of all these different independent brands.
Hence the name where we are. We are at Intersect Atlanta, all right?
And really what we wanted to do is show awareness for all of these independent small makers of things that we make as well.
Okay.
Just kind of increase the appreciation, increase the footprint of our segment of the market.
Okay. Tell me a little bit about your watches as I zoom over here and take a quick shot.
Sure. So we specialize in sport watches. So everything here is super durable, water resistant, anti-shock, anti-mag, all the good stuff.
And you're making these in LA?
Yeah, so all these are built in LA.
Okay.
Source parts from all over the world.
Okay.
As do pretty much all watch companies.
Yep.
I think one part of our business that you should take a look at is the Notice Design Lab.
Yep.
This is where a lot of the fun and magic happens. This is a platform that we have basically used to collaborate with outside people, outside brands, influencers, podcasters.
Uh-oh, we need a marketing Madmen watch, man. We got to talk now.
Yeah.
So give me an example of who these collaborations individually are with.
Sure. This one right here is with this podcaster called Smoking Tire. Matt Fair is the guy's name.
Okay.
Big watch guy, very big car guy.
Yeah, the overlap is crazy with cars and watches. I mean, if you're really a fan of it, the engineering that goes into both is insane.
Yeah,
but
one's just big, one's small.
Yeah.
So that's the Matt Farah Canyon is what it's called.
Very cool.
This year it just launched.
Make sure I get that two-tone of the dial, how it kind of changes color on you.
This one here is called the Trail Trekker. That's a collaboration actually with this company next to us.
Cool.
Called Raven. Raven's one of the OG American micro brands.
Okay.
They started this entire trend of small makers, but selling things at a high scale.
Yeah.
And he's taught us everything we know.
Really?
So it was a
Good for
real
you.
pleasure. It's a real pleasure and honor to work with him on that.
Good for you. Good for you. All right. So tell me a little bit about the American watch industry. We were talking before, and you said, when you started this in 2017, it was 3-4 of you, and now there's hundreds. So talk about why it's developed so fast, and again, why you are, in theory, letting your competitors advertise in the same space as you. What's that general, the rising tide lifts all ship?
Sure.
Give me a little bit about that.
Yeah. So we don't actually see all these brands here. You see.
Yeah, and I'm going to do a walkthrough after also.
We don't look at any of them as competitors. if there is any semblance of a competition, it's our segment versus the mainstream brands.
Yeah.
Right. So the way I see it is, if I can give a platform to Laurier or Astor and Banks or Chris Ward, and give them a platform to tell their story on their own terms, we all win.
Yeah.
It grows the entire pie.
Yeah.
Something we make might not appeal to someone that buys from them or buy from them or buy from them, and that's fine. That's the joy of this hobby.
And
right?
every one of you is going against a different segment, right?
Yeah,
like based on your price points here, if we were talking the establishment, probably Tissot, Hamilton, Mido in that range, and then you got some over there $4,000 or $5,000 watches that are going against some of the higher end. So there's a little bit for everybody, and I think that's my favorite part of the Swiss watch industry or the total watch industry. Is it's all price points. It's been more about accessibility. Now, the coveted ones that disappear, that's not what we're talking about here. But there was a time where it was just top end or low end. There was not, that middle didn't exist, and we're starting to fill out the middle, which I absolutely love. So again, how many brands would you say they're making in America now that are similar to you, using source parts but assembling them and making them in America?
So many. If I have to put a number on it, a couple hundred maybe.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, a couple hundred.
Okay.
Yeah.
What's your favorite part of doing this? What made you start this? And then we'll finish with which is your favorite of the bunch on this table?
My favorite brand here?
No, so let's start with why you got into this.
Sure.
Why this happened, and then afterwards, I just want to finish with which is your favorite watch on this shelf over here.
Oh, got it.
Okay.
So I got into this because I'm an enthusiast. I love this space. I love micro brands. I love wearing a watch. I love designing watches, looking at watches. So that's why I started personally. Why we started Intersect was specifically to grow the entire pie, like make the entire pie bigger. And out of all the watches that we have, I would say probably. Actually, this one is right now is my favorite.
And that's what is that a PVD? What's the coating on it?
No, it's a DLC case.
Yep.
A gray DLC.
Yeah, they usually see black. That's really cool.
And then this part, the bezel and the dial are Cerakoted. So it's basically like a ceramic powder that we spray it on to the part, and then we cook it, and that solidifies it.
Oh, wow.
And then we engrave the numbers and then ink fill it on the bezel.
Yeah, so that's a lot of work that goes into making that. I mean, for people to understand, you just said coating ceramic, then putting the bezel. Most people would just paint those numbers on.
Yeah.
You went and engraved them and then painted on top of it. That's awesome.
And no one can do that yet. This is the first watch in the world that has that type of technology used. And,
where can someone find that watch?
Our website.
Your website?
Yeah.
And are those limited edition? Is that something you're going to make in short form, or is it something you're going to keep making if there's more demand for it?
It's small batch production, so it's not limited. We're producing a lot more now. But small batch production, and this one sold out in like 20, 30 minutes.
That's awesome.
We're making a lot more right now.
That's awesome.
And it's open for pre-order until end of month.
That's awesome. All right, well, you heard it here, guys. We're at Intersect Watch Show. There's a lot going on. One of the founders, Wes from Notice, talking through, and we'll be back. All right. So we got Alan from Tao Watch Company, and my first and primary question is, what the hell made you think Baltimore watches? We're starting a watch company.
So it all started with obsession of watches.
Okay.
We all go down this rabbit hole, and once you start collecting more pieces, for me, my wife was like, Alan, stop buying so many watches, just start your own company.
There you go.
So my background is in design and marketing, so I started designing 50, 60 different watches.
Okay.
So I finally finished one that I loved. I was like, if I love it this much, I know that someone else will too. And being from Baltimore, born and raised in Baltimore, I just had to create something in Baltimore. From like our movements that are fully assembled in Maryland, to the designs itself that are inspired around something in Maryland.
Love it.
From like having the Maryland flag on our movements, which is awesome.
Love it.
But yeah, infusing my passion, obsession with watches into these incredible timepieces, just
So let me ask you this question, a marketing question. It's the first time I've gotten to ask a marketing question. I'm so excited. All right, so you say design and marketing when you're done. Do you design them with the intent of them being marketed? Or do you design them to design them and figure out the marketing later? Are you designing one that like, all right, I know that if I design this way, this can be marketed. Are you thinking that much through when you do them?
So generally during my design process, it's because I have that itch to want a new watch.
Okay.
And because we have our own brands, it's tough for me to buy a watch because I only have to wear my watch because every opportunity is an opportunity to sell.
Sure.
So fortunately, my taste in watches, whatever new design is because I want to watch with that similar design. So I kind of create.
Lucky you. That sounds like a pretty nice way to do it. Lucky you. Besides how much hard work it takes to do all that stuff, but yeah.
It definitely takes time, a lot of effort, a lot of testing. So my phase is like I would design something, at the midnight hours, and then 2 days later, look at it again, toss that entire design because I was like, what was I even thinking?
Yeah.
And then recreate it and do that process like 5, 6 times.
Do you ever look back at the old
I do.
the sketches and designs?
It's hilarious.
Yeah.
How the evolution during that small time frame.
Yeah.
And it's just
How long
like
have you been doing this?
2017. Started 2017.
Okay. But so you got a lot of design, hundreds of designs.
Oh, yeah.
Do you ever look back and say, shit, I should have used that one?
No. Fortunately, usually the last iteration of that design is usually the
Oh,
best.
got it. So it's a progression from one
Yes.
to eventually this one. So you're
Exactly.
doing it not
Exactly.
ADD like me, where you're trying to do 54 at the same time.
Yeah.
You're
Yeah.
doing one and iterations
Yeah.
until you get it where you like it for yourself, which as an enthusiast, you assume other people will like
exactly.
it. All right. So
Exactly.
what out of here? Which was the first one that you done that you have
well,
out here? It
we
doesn't have to be
don't.
the first one that you have, but the first one out here that you did.
I did. Well, let's see. So the coolest ones is probably like our Legacy series that we launched in 2020.
Okay.
Really cool piece. The coolest part actually is the movement.
Yeah.
So we actually have the Maryland flag on
Yeah.
that. So it's actually
Unmistakable flag, by the way.
We fully assembled, regulated, and decorate the entire movement from Maryland. So
Wow.
that's why we call it the Legacy series. It's first time using this movement and creating this movement, so it's kind of our legacy of starting the brand.
Yeah, that's great, man. Not a lot of people are doing that. What do these go for?
So the Legacy series goes for 900.
Not bad for making your own movement in-house.
Yeah, and then we have bronze versus stainless steel.
Yep.
We also have pilot watches. They are actually titanium, so they're around 750. All automatic pieces.
Yeah.
Then over here we have our new torch diver. They're currently available pre-order. Comes in bronze or stainless steel. These also house the Maryland movement, which is really cool.
Cool.
Yeah.
Really cool.
Thank you.
All right. So what's your favorite part of the industry, and what do you have the most challenge with?
Favorite part is, having to meet other people, like doing these events.
Yeah.
Going out, setting up meetups, talking to customers, talking to people that may be interested in watches,
Yeah.
and just having a good time.
Yeah, and I have to imagine since 2017 to now, the industry, you felt the explosion.
Oh yeah, there's a huge growth in the independent micro brand world, but it's just more exposure of the whole industry itself. So it gives people, they know that there's an independent watch company, so they're more open to it rather than like years ago it was like independent watch company. It's like, why would I do that? Why not just get a Seiko, right? Yeah. So now like people are more comfortable, and it's definitely something more unique and more niche, which is great.
Yeah, and I think the advent of the internet and social media, direct to consumer, allows you to cut out that middleman.
100%.
And honestly, those middlemen are losing ground every day because the brands want to take control. Even the highest end ones want to take control.
Right. And
so you got ahead of the curve there.
Yeah, and it allows us to be more creative too.
Yeah.
We're really listening to, the audience. Like, what are you trying to do? What do you want of your next watch? You know, Rolex isn't listening to you.
Yeah.
Because they're just creating the same watch over and over again. Versus, us micro brands and independent brands, we're listening to the customers, and we're also putting what we enjoy in watches into our own designs.
Yeah.
Which is fun.
You see it. I have to imagine doing the in-house movement was a huge investment up front, but it's already paying dividends now because you're controlling every step of the cycle
exactly.
now.
And it helps differentiate us with other companies, which is great, especially with our price point too. It's just it's fun.
It's awesome. All right, so give some people advice about Baltimore. Tell them some favorite places to go. I was a Federal Hill kid. I would be in Felds Point every year for Halloween.
Point, Federal Hill. Brewers Hill. I mean, our showroom is actually located in Hamden, which is just north of the city. A lot of really good breweries around there. And it's just a good time. Crab cakes, beer. Great time.
Go to Pickles if you're going to an Orioles game.
Yeah, hell yeah.
There you go. That's all I got. Thanks.
Well, we're wrapping up our episode from the Intersect Watch Show and Moto Escape in Atlanta. Great time. So excited about it. So excited that I hope it comes back next year. Thank you again to Wes and all the brands that were out there, and we'll talk next time.